fearfully pushing off a Shami Stovall ending is basically a Pavlovian response at this point. Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. This is one that I was so scared of, but I got it done, and that is Master Arcanist by Shami Stovall. This is the 7th book in the Frith Chronicles, which also makes this the longest running review series on my channel. No other books that I have gotten for review have gotten to 7 books as of yet, and this is also the 10th book that I have reviewed by this author, so I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on her style. But this book scared the living daylights out of me because of the way book 6 ended. And obviously I'm going to be talking about a lot of spoilers from several books back. You literally can't talk about this without it. So if you don't want to be spoiled, I will have all of the links to the other reviews down in the description below. But this one is very important because it starts maybe moments, maybe an hour at most after the end of book 6. And you will remember that in book 6, shit hit the fan in like 10 different ways. It was an ending that I have not seen the likes of in this series since probably book 3. Remember back to book 3 when Volk got the plague at the same point that a monarch was being assassinated and a tyrant was being instilled and all of that was going down? That's this, in book 6 at least. So I knew that I was gonna have to like face a lot of things in this book, and there's almost like a pragmatic vibe to this book where Volk is kind of like slowly working his way through multiple problems. They have to go to the Fenris Wolf Lair. They have to track down Vethica and Luther. They, continue having to fight the Second Ascension. And there's just a lot of things going on as a direct result of what happened in the previous book, that it almost like, you can almost feel like the character trying to be like, all right, we got to wrap up some of these plot threads. And Shami tends to write a lot in that way, I've noticed, where certain things will be brought up in the narrative, and I think it's like trying to hint at something or foreshadow something, but no, it's only brought up because that's part of the mechanics of the world and it has to be noted. Like, for example, there is a concept of attunement, right? You make a magical artifact and then you can attune it to an Arcanist so that no one else can use it in its magic instead of them. And there's been multiple times over the course of this series where they'll make a note of it, right? Like, you cannot use this artifact unless it's attuned to you, but then there are times where they'll be like, I'm too tired, because it uses a lot of magic and energy to imbue. I'm too tired, so we'll attune it later. And they'll like flat out go into that. And I'm thinking as the reader, like, someone else is going to get the magical artifact, right? Like, someone else is going to do it. No, it'll be attuned fine. But again, her writing is very practical in that we must go through all of the steps, and you must bring up all of the steps and go through them. It almost feels almost like a TTRPG world, where it's like we are giving a nod to the mechanics. And considering the fact that she is also writing a lit RPG, I think it's just a preferred writing style of hers to acknowledge all of the mechanics of the world at a regular basis, even if it doesn't affect the plot. So I've kind of gotten used to that, but it was very funny to see that. And on top of it, one of the other things that made me scared about this book is a thing that happens in the first 100 pages. And I am not going to say what that thing is, because it is a kind of gigantic character moment, but there is a character moving forward that is essentially beginning an entirely new arc for their character, and I don't think they're doing okay. I think a lot of things in this book hint that things aren't going well, and could theoretically provide a lot of tension moving forward. On top of that, there was one thing that I was really looking forward to in this book. I mean, obviously I was looking forward to it. I like the series, but I was really excited to get more into Hexa. If you will remember, for the longest time, Hexa was kind of the overlooked one of the original apprentices. Adelgis had his whole storyline with his father. Zaxxas has always been at the forefront. Addie has always been at the forefront. Hexa always felt like the one that, because she didn't have any like deep dark secrets and wants and desires and didn't feud with Volk, that she was kind of just shoved to the side. But in this one, you see a lot more of her. It's kind of hinted, well, at least not hinted, basically stated, because in book 6, I think, Volk literally sees them making out, that Hexa and Vethika are like a thing. And so when Vethika goes missing, Hexa kind of comes to the forefront of the group to be like, we are going to find her, we are going to get this. And they end up going to Hexa's hometown, Regal Heights, which was fun. It was a brand new setting. It was a really intriguing setting that was different from all the settings from before. I really liked the mechanics of it and the Hydras, and the lore of how Regal Heights was made. All of that was a lot of fun, and I liked having a place that was so different from the giant cities that the book series had been focused on. And of course, letting Hexa get a lot more quote-unquote screen time in this one. The downside is, though, is that now Addie is kind of the one shoved to the side. But I do like that the book does not outright state it yet, but does hint both that Hexa and Vethika are a thing, but also that my Achillean ship of Fane and Adalgis are a thing. And it's the most subtle. It's the most subtle things. Like, they're not official in this one yet, but Volk makes some like comment about how, you know, he talks about Eviana or says Eviana's name the way that Hexa says Vethika's, or Fane says Moonbeam, his nickname for Adalgis. And I was like, yes, I'll take it. I am the disaster bisexual. I will take any crumbs of a queer relationship. Thank you. Which, you know, there are other books that have like full-on queer relationships, but I can foresee them becoming like full-on canon relationships moving forward. But this series has done a great job with the world building in more ways than one. And it finally occurred to me why the world building works so well for me in this book, because traditionally, normally, world building and I don't get along very well. I don't read a lot of high fantasy because I get so lost in the lore and the world building, and I get confused constantly. And it finally occurred to me that the reason that this series has worked so well is that it is highly repetitive in laying out the facts. And that makes a lot of sense because it's a very long series with a lot of pages between them. So certain facts of the world could have been introduced up to 1,000 pages ago. So it repeats things often. And I know for some people that are like world building aficionados, that might be annoying, but this is a YA series, so it should be catering to a younger audience. And I'm not arguing that point. Young adult was meant for teens. No, I don't care that the word adult is in there. We all knew what they meant when they said it. But regardless, that kind of repetitive, we're going to keep reminding you of all these world building facts and lore facts moving forward, really helps actually make them stick in my head. So no, I'm not actually becoming better at understanding world building. Sad. But of course, if we're going to talk about Shami Stovall, we have to talk about the Shami Stovall ending. And that is kind of overhyped, actually, in this one. I was so sure that this one was just gonna gut me. I started this book in September, and I put off that last 150 pages 2 months. I finished this after Thanksgiving because I was so sure the ending was going to be catastrophic. And while yes, it did have a lot of the hallmarks that I expect of a Shami Stovall ending, especially in this series, giant monster battles and fire, always fire, it didn't feel as big as some of the previous endings we've had. And not to say that's a bad thing. I don't want to be gutted every time I read a book in this series, but because I'm so prepared for any ending in this series to be a book 3 or a book 6, that I psych myself out. But this one, honestly, there weren't many differences in this one. there was one or two things I like who some of the new God Arcanists are. I really like the last God Arcanist. I was like, ooh, I see you. I see you, Shami. I love a redemption arc too. I see you. It was so good. But in general, I really liked this book. It didn't necessarily wipe away some of my previous issues that I've had with the series, although I do like Terracona has grown on me so much. I was so iffy about Terracona in book 6, but seeing his, like, dorky side, like he has a cute cinnamon roll dorky side in this one, him built in the little grove, oh, it was so cute that he's growing on me so much more. Eviana and Volk together, I can still take or leave. I definitely don't want to go back to the love pentagon of books past. That was way too much, and I am glad that the book series is like, no, that's done. It's fine. Ilya is with Zaxis. They're happy together. Like, we're good. Karna is getting possibly her own love interest, and I like that one as well. But in general, it more than the last book felt a little bit more like a point A to point B book in a series, a continuation of a thing with some changes, but not as the gigantic ground shifting one. So if you are like me and you're like, oh god, this book, it's not as severe an emotional turmoil as you think it might be. But the next one, if I am correct in what they're going to focus on in the next one, that one's gonna get me. That one might get me early on in the book with the emotional turmoil. So I am once again unprepared. And also, I do have the Arcanist Fables book that I might review. I haven't decided yet. She did send me a copy, but we did not like formally agree to a review scenario, but I might tag that in only because it has taken me so long to get this one in. But regardless, I am loving this series. It continues to be one of my favorites. It continues to be one of the most recommended on my channel, and I am so happy that there are so many other Shami Stovall fans out there. So if you are a Frith Chronicles stan and you want to like leave me a comment. Tell me who your favorite character is. Do you ship Fane and Adelgis? Have you? Because I've been there. The first time Fane called him Moonbeam, I was there. Regardless, if you are an indie author and you are looking for a review, I am actually currently closed for the rest of the calendar year. I will open again in 2023, so you can check on my socials, and hopefully I will actually remember to keep my actual review policy document updated with when I am open and closed. I'm trying to get better at that. But regardless, with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.